Welcome to You Make the Difference. I'm Wanda Walker, and I have as my guest today Shirley Andrews. And Shirley is with the Emmaus Women's Shelter. The Emmaus Women's Shelter serves women who are homeless. And Shirley, we're so glad to have you on the program today.
Thank you. I welcome the opportunity.
Yes, and the Emmaus Women's Shelter got started about February 2009. Is that right?
That's what they tell me.
That's what they tell you. And it resulted from a group of people in the community who were concerned about women who were coming out of jail, who didn't have a place to go, and just other women in the community who found themselves in homelessness. And the meetings started, and pretty soon Shirley and Kay Elam showed up and had a plan for opening a women's shelter. And it's really amazing that within 6 months or less, there was a women's shelter opened in LaGrange with a night shelter and also a day shelter. And Shirley, it's amazing how when you want to do something and you have a passion for it, that you look at the resources that you have, and God has already blessed you with a lot of things that you need. And what I'm thinking about is the day shelter.
Well, one of the things about homelessness and the problem that they run into so many times is there's no jobs for these women, or the women don't have a job, or they have one or two things keeping them from being able to get a job. Well, it really started with me trying to find a job for Miss Kay because she was overqualified for most things, and another late friend of mine. And so I was really just thinking about creating a job. And we got to looking at transitional things out of the jail, because you had shared with us, and Miss Kay had worked with the ministry in the jail, and there were so many women who needed help with an address.
Yes.
You can't even get out of jail without an address. And so that put together with the fact when we went to the meeting, someone suggested we go to the meeting because we were working on something similar. And we sat there and looked at each other and said, well, we have a building. We have an office. We can start the day center right now, because my husband donated a year of a building. And he said, yeah. Miss Kay had the nerve to ask him. I didn't, but she had
Yes.
the nerve to ask him about it. He said, sure, that'll be all right. And then after you get started, then you can start paying rent. But so we had a building, and we had our first client. Second client that came in was my daughter's age. And she needed to just sleep. We had set some rules about you needed to be sober.
Yes.
When you started.
Yes.
And she had not quite managed to meet sober yet. But she would come, and she was so tired from what she was having to do at night that she would sleep all day on our couch. And what I was going to say, my daughter had run track with her.
Yes.
It's just that age group that we're beginning to see all of a sudden, and her needs were great. She'd been getting meals from Max Riley's deliverance ministry. They would hand out supper sometimes.
Yes.
And so there are segments of people who are trying to help in different ways, but there wasn't a place for women to stay. And so when Max said, well, I know where you can get a house really cheap. And so all we could actually afford that first year was the rent for the house, and since we didn't have to pay rent for our building, and we weren't getting a salary because we donated our time, and the utilities.
Yes.
And we got Miss Wanda on our board right off the bat. Charles Wardlaw tried to talk us out of it, and sometimes we wish he had, but he couldn't, and so he said, well, he would be the president of our board. But I remember Miss Kay would go out and just ask for money. She went to important people and said, I need $1,000, and so and so we were making it through that year, little by little by little. And one day, I was keeping the books, and I called Miss Wanda and I said, we're not going to make it if we don't get some more money. And she made a phone call to Faith Baptist Church, and they had already taken up a collection. They were going to give it to us, but they didn't know how much we needed it, so they brought it that day, and it made us be able to, continue. And it was like supplies there before the needs are known, and we've just mushroomed into where we are right now.
That's right. And then you were able to get a Callaway grant.
Yes, and that carried us for 3 years.
And now we are dependent on community support.
Yeah, we had some money left. We didn't spend everything, so we saved all the money. We're very frugal with our money.
Yes.
And we had some left, and so we've managed to almost maintain that amount because we've had more civic organizations. The Elks Club makes donations. The city of LaGrange now supports us because we help the police department by taking the women that they have in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And they don't know what to do with them. They don't need to go to jail, but they need a place. And so they're so happy with our being able to help them with that they help support us on a monthly basis. First Baptist Church supports us on a monthly basis. And we've got some tiny little churches from out Liberty Hill that are regular donors. I mean, bigger churches don't give as much as these people. They'll every fall they'll bring something. Every Christmas they'll bring something. And we've had people a man came in one day and brought us a wonderful Christmas gift for a special needs child. And he says, "What else can I do for you?" And I said, "Well, you could give us $100 a month for the rest of your life." And he said, "Let me talk to somebody about that." So he talked to me today, and he's been giving us $150 a month ever since.
Yes.
And so it's word of mouth. It's each person telling another person there's a need here.
Yes.
And it can be met if everybody works together.
Right. And the Emmaus Women's Shelter, really, I've been amazed at how well they meet the needs. I mean, they're a shelter for women. Plus, the community gave so much in donations of clothes and sometimes furniture and different things that you opened up Emma's Attic.
Right.
And tell me about Emma's Attic.
Emma's Attic is, it started out, we needed clothes for the women to be able to change into something for an interview.
Right.
Because they come in, in all different kinds of things. And so people would donate their nicer clothes or used clothes, good used clothes, something that you wouldn't mind your sister or your mother or your aunt,
Yes.
having. We don't take trash, but we get offered trash sometimes. But that started out, and it grew because when people found out that we were an organization who welcomed their stuff, like if their mother died and they didn't have a place to give it, and Salvation Army takes some kinds of things, and they had different things with that, and we welcomed the stuff, some furniture for when somebody moves into an apartment for the first time, or they come in to us without anything.
Yes.
And so when they go out, when they graduate, they need a bed or stove or something, and people have donated those kind of things. And Emma's Attic has turned into a place where we can have sales and raise money for that license that they need $20 to get, because sometimes they don't have a driver. So many people have been robbed. They've stolen their stuff. They've stolen their purse, which had everything, their social security number, their driver's license, their identity. It's taken away. And so the money from the Emma's Attic helps us be able to pay for those incidentals and medication sometimes.
Yes.
But the Methodist Church has a program that helps with medication. And so we send them down there to sign up for that. We don't try to reinvent anything. We try to help them understand what's going on in the community that can help them. Like the Baptist Church has the dental clinic, and several of our local dentists volunteer their time to help people have their teeth pulled.
Yes.
And so we just coordinate them and direct them in the right direction, like personal aid. If they don't already know that, personal aid sends people to us and we send people to them. So we partner with as many of the community as we can to make things better for the
Yes.
women.
And so you have yard sales periodically, right?
Yep. The first Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That's the kicker. Like this November starts on Friday, so it's the next weekend. But the first Thursday, Friday, and the third Thursday, Friday, and Saturday is the attic sale. And now that it's cooled off, or when it cools off a little bit more, it'll be great time to go up in the attic. There's children's clothes, there's car seats, there's children's equipment, and all the women's things you could possibly need. And a lot of times it's either a $5 for a big paper sack full, are $1 a piece, or if it's something really nice, they'll charge just a little bit more. But shoes for $1 or for $2, boots for $2.
Yes.
And you'd be amazed what people bring. Some people are shopaholics, and they love us because they can go ahead and give us what they
And
don't
then
even
buy
take
some
the
more.
tags.
Yeah.
They don't even take the tags off them sometimes when we get them. But we get all different kinds of things. And the overflow of that, we have a satellite ministry, which is Franklin.
Yes.
And they have a little church up there that's anxious to help people, but with very few resources. So we take truckloads of stuff that we've gone through and it doesn't meet the needs of Emma's attic, goes into the truck, goes up there and gets spread over 2 or 3 different communities
right?
up there. And so it helps many ways.
Yes. And then also you have another ministry that comes out of Emmaus is the food boxes. And you provide those food boxes in an effort to prevent homelessness. Now tell us about the food boxes and when you give them out and who can qualify for a food box.
Well, a lot of time, what you run into now that the economy is like it is, sometimes people have to make a choice. Do I want to pay my utility bill or do I want to go buy groceries? And that's a sad thing to have to do. But we would rather them come see us and get a food box.
Yes.
They can come twice a month and take up to 30 pounds of stuff. We get things from the Feeding the Valley in Columbus, where we have to only pay 18 cents a pound. So for some people who want to donate toward food, you can donate money and we'll buy those things. But the Fill the Food Box is a program. We have boxes with this sign. It's going to be on the front of them, spread all over town. It's hosting Troup County's largest food drive. Right now we've got 30 locations. The Franklin Forest School has 7 boxes over there, and they fill them up.
Yes.
And what we want to do, we have a box truck. We'd like to fill that up with food because anybody who comes for that food can get it. There are certain stipulations with SNAP and USDA foods that we get, that we purchase. There's regulations that go with those. These are for those people who need the food and will humble themselves and ask.
Yes.
And that's all they have to do.
Yes.
There's not any other stipulation. You sign a paper, but that's just for our information. It's not turned into the government or anything like that, so you don't ruin anything. And we just trust the Lord to bring the people who need the stuff, and we don't ask a lot of questions.
Yes. So these boxes are in different locations all over LaGrange. And they're in businesses and those kinds of things, and people can drop off their food there, and it comes to the Emmaus Women's Shelter.
And as this says, boxed drinks, paper products, canned drinks, snack lunch supplies, cereals, canned food, non-perishable foods, drink mixes, all kinds of things that you know will last on your shelf, the kind of things you need for emergencies. But those are things, it's like, Wanda and I were talking a while ago, some people don't know how to fix dry beans. But we tell them, we ask them if they know how, and we tell them how, and knowing that can sustain them for several days longer than just a can of beans or a can of soup. But one of the things we're facing is malnourishment in our area. It's like if some people had $2 all of a sudden, what would they do with it? Would they buy a sack of something that would last them 2 or 3 days, or would they buy a hamburger? They're likely to buy the hamburger. And anything quick, anything easy, and they end up being malnourished instead of nourished. And so we'd like to get them balanced things. We give them protein and whatever else. And your contribution to these food boxes will help them get a variety of things. And the culmination is going to be October 31st at Pop's Party Place, which is not entirely new, but it's under new management. And it's not so tricky treats. There's going to be fun for children with no candy and no costumes. And so if you're not interested in Halloween as such, we'll just use that day as a time they can come and they can earn, there's open play passes that they can earn if they'll bring food items to the Pop's Party Place, and they'll have boxes there. And we're trying to fill up that truck.
And Pop's Party Place is located on
Lafayette Parkway at the Lafayette Mini Storage.
Close to Pizza Villa.
It's right. You'd have to turn in like you're going to Pizza Villa and make a hard left, and it comes around to Pop's Place.
Yes, and there's lots of things for the kids to jump on. And
fun. It's a safe place for you can sit down at a table and your kids can kind of go crazy, but they can't run off. Like at the park, you might lose or something. But anyway, it's a good place, and they do birthday parties and activities like that. And one of the things they point out, we give away at least 75 emergency food boxes a month. It's staggering the need, and we had to limit the days that people could come so we could go ahead and go about the rest of our business and not just do food boxes.
Okay, so you give food boxes on
Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 10 to 2. We'd like to be able to do lunch without doing it, but they come through lunchtime too anyway. And we're working on a volunteer program that will perhaps lengthen the time, because some people can't come. They do have a little bit of a job. They can't come during those hours, and so we're trying to find the right kind of volunteer that can keep it open on Saturday morning maybe, and people can be able to come. And that's one of the things, if I don't say anything else, we need volunteers. If you don't know what your mission is, ask the Lord if this can be your Africa. When I was 12 years old, I thought God wanted me to go to Africa. He brought me to LaGrange instead. And my daughter says the same thing, and many other people that we know say similar things. You have a heart for missions.
Yes.
And speaking of that, we're gonna say
Give your pledge.
When I was a GA, when I was 9 years old, we did the maiden step. We had several steps, and with that was Bible study, learning Bible scriptures and stuff. But the pledge was knowing that countless people grope in darkness and giving attention to His command. I assert my allegiance to Jesus Christ, to His church, and its activities, attempting with God's help to abide in Him through prayer, to advance in wisdom by Bible study, to acknowledge my stewardship of time, money, and personality, to adorn myself with good works, and to accept the challenge of the Great Commission. That's the basis for what we do. We want Miss Ann, a typical day at the center. Miss Ann goes and gets the ladies from the night shelter, and we have restrictions over there. You have to be out by 8:30. You have to either be off looking for a job, or you come to the center to work there, because there's all kinds of stuff. There's stuff in the attic to do, and there's stuff in the yard to do. We try to get people in the mode of getting up and getting out and getting to work. But the first thing they do is have Bible study, and Miss Ann has accepting the challenge of the Great Commission. She wants to spread the word, and she wants to tell them about Jesus. And they have their Bible study for the first part of the day, and the other part, the stewardship. There are many ways people can serve the Lord, and it's not always money, but money's good. Money's what we use to do the worldly things, buy utilities and pay rent. It's like Miss Kay says, we love paper products, but the landlord doesn't take paper products for payment. He really likes money. But then they job search is a big issue with us, and so we find out what they need. If they need an ID, or if they need their driver's license, that goes with the ID, but they might need some other small thing that's just holding them back. And like we said, a lot of times they've been robbed, and they don't even have the things that they started off with. And it's amazing. It's so sad to me, the devastation that women suffer from people with stinking thinking. We want to encourage the women that God loves them, and that He has a plan. Jeremiah says, I have a plan, and it's a good plan.
That's right.
It's a good plan. And some of them have never thought that God even loved them, much less had a plan for them.
Right.
And we've seen times when Miss Ann she's always praying with people, and we'll all pray with people, and we all want to represent Jesus. And we all learn and grow about how hard that can be sometimes. But we pray and we ask for things sometimes. We don't try to tell God what to do, but we tell him what we're thinking about, because he says ask, and that he will happily. And so like yesterday we had an impossible situation. We said, what is this family going to do? We have no idea whether we're going to be able to do it. Will they be here forever or what? That afternoon, they found a way out and are gone.
Wow.
And we don't have to worry about that family right now. And we've had one asked me about a success story. We had a little lady that came to us. The police brought her in. She'd been sleeping under the bridge. She knew how to camp. She had a pretty good assortment of things. She could live on her own, but it was getting hard on her, and it was very very difficult. And so she came to us, and she sat over in the chair, and never said a word. She was just so withdrawn, and one of our staff took her with her in the car to watch her child while the child slept in the car. And it was a perfect babysitting time, but there wasn't anything she had to do. She had to just sit there. So they turned religious music on, and she said she loves it.
Yes.
And it began to bring her out of her shell, and she began to talk to people, and now she's graduated. She lives in her own little apartment. And she's now helping us help the next person that's graduated from us. That, you know, we have a 21-day program right now. You come in and we hit the ground running for what you can do to make your life better as soon as possible. It's not a rehab. It's not a full transitional program. It's what do you need to be able to get on with your life. And Miss Kay talks about your map. You have to have a map.
Yes.
You have to have a plan. And you have to form a plan if you hadn't already had a plan. If you're going to get to Chicago, you got to know you got to get to Hogansville or Atlanta first. There's some steps to get that will take you to the end result, but you've got to start somewhere. But anyway, sometimes people call and think this is going to be their place to stay for a long, long time.
Years.
But then also when we say there are restrictions, there's curfews and there's rules and there's regulations and there's 4 people to a room. We have bunk beds, and it's not the Hilton. You know,
Yes.
it's not. It's safe, it's clean, and they clean themselves. You know, clean it up themselves. It's as clean as they want it to be, and there's food there, and and there's cooperation, and that's the hardest thing for some people. They
Yes.
can't get along with people, and you have to learn that that's part of the deal. You have to get along with your neighbor, and you get a real close neighborhood over there. But anyway, then like she takes them to, Miss Ann takes them to Georgia employment places, and
Yes.
she takes them to the other places. And we know now that almost everything has to be done online, or they have to make those visits. And so Miss Ann helps with that. We don't do all the running around for them, but we help them in that way. And a lot of times they just needed encouragement.
Yes.
They just needed somebody to believe in them and tell them that God loved them and offered them another way of thinking. Because, and then sometimes people have left mad and come back and said, thank you so much because you did so much for us. And we have several people that still, you know, keep in touch with us and are successful in their little endeavors.
Yes, and I know that has to feel good to see somebody come in and see them through their journey and then see them successful. Let's talk about a couple of ways that we raise funds for the Emmaus Women's Shelter.
Well, some of you may have enjoyed the Emma's ice cream cranking. We wanted to do something for the community and have ice cream tasting, and we had a great turnout this year, and we hope to have a bigger one next year. People make ice cream and come, and you can come taste all the different kinds you want. And then there's a contest to see who made the best ice cream and stuff. And there's sometimes a train. Last year there was a train. Sometimes the jumpy things that kids can do, and their activities. And Mickey Mouse came to see us this year, and Hello Kitty,
Yes.
and SpongeBob was there. So kids got to take their picture with Mickey and have a great time. We had good music and entertainment. The karate kids came and gave us a demonstration. And then the other thing that we've done this year is Blues and Barbecue, and it's our 3rd year. And we just had a great turnout, and we had so many local people donating to us, and that means we've got 3 seconds.
3 minutes.
Oh, 3 minutes. Well, and we appreciate it. We had wonderful development committee this year that Darlene Herring and Phyllis Boyette and Kathy Martin and Samoria, what's her last name? Anyway, just did such a great job. And we had a florist who helped us with the centerpieces that she just gave her whole 2 days.
Yes.
24 hours to help us, and Wanda and some more people. And the LaGrange high school service clubs, different high school groups, different middle school groups.
Yes.
We really enjoy people coming in. We're a place for service, and your service groups can get, this is an
to
opportunity. And
get their service hours
in.
With the high schools, the service clubs, they need
junior high
opportunities to get their hours in, and it was very rewarding to see all those high school students come in and help with
They did a great job.
with the banquet, and the banquet was really wonderful, and I know that everybody who came enjoyed it. It had a silent auction that we did very well with the silent auction this year.
And Trailers Pawn Shop helped us out with that, and several other people, and I shouldn't have ever said one name, but we really appreciate them. Different beauty shops donated baskets, dental. We had dental whitening, teeth whitening places, and wonderful contributions, and we appreciate the community's cooperation and help with that.
Yes, and I would just like to say that we really have appreciated the community embracing the Emmaus Women's Shelter.
Absolutely.
And it's one thing that I just love about this area is if there is a need and we come up with a solution, there are many people that come around that. We've had great support from businesses, from education. We've had great support from the government.
Mm-hmm.
We've had great support from the churches and families in every way you can imagine. And we would just like to say thank you today because you have truly made a difference. Thank you for watching.
A year of replevin'. Got a promise from heaven. It's all coming